The last hope. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Concordat had never been so silent. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species sat in stunned silence as Admiral Zexthal, Supreme Commander of the Combined Fleet, delivered the news no one wanted to hear. The Void Harbingers have breached the Antares defense line, the towering insectoid announced, his mandibles clicking in distress. 17 worlds have fallen in the past solar cycle. The 6th and 8th fleets are no more. The holographic display at the center of the vast chamber showed the inexorable advance of the enemy across the spiral arm. Red indicators swept forward like a tide of blood, consuming the blue points of light that represented Concordat territory. First Speaker Kalan, the ancient reptilian leader of the council, closed his inner eyelids in a gesture of profound sorrow. After 3 centuries of war, we stand on the precipice of extinction. Our most brilliant strategists, our most advanced technologies, our bravest warriors, all have failed to halt the Harbinger's advance. Chancellor Mora of the Phalanx Collective rose, her crystalline form catching the light. There is one option we have not yet considered, she said, her voice resonating through the chamber. One species whose assistance we have never formally requested. A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembly. The Concordat included virtually every spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy. Who could possibly? The humans, Mora continued, and the murmur became a roar of disbelief and outrage. Preposterous! Shouted Ambassador Tull of the Valxy Federation. They're barely more than primitives. They've had faster-than-light travel for less than 2 centuries. They're savages, called another voice. Their homeworld is still scarred. From their nuclear conflicts, Admiral Zexthal raised all 4 of his arms, silencing the chamber. They are also, he said slowly, the only species in known space who have encountered the Void Harbingers and survived. That statement brought absolute silence. It was true. 50 years ago, a Harbinger scout fleet had encountered the human colony on Proxima Centauri III. The Harbingers had attacked, as they always did. The humans had not only repelled the attack, but had utterly destroyed the scout fleet. The Concordat had observed from a distance, astonished. They had written it off as an anomaly. Perhaps the Harbinger fleet had been damaged, or the humans had been extraordinarily lucky. But now, with extinction looming, that single victory took on new significance. The humans were offered membership in the Concordat after their victory, First Speaker Kalan reminded the assembly. They declined. They said our defensive posture was insufficient, Admiral Zexthal added. They said we didn't understand the nature of the enemy. And they were right, Mora said simply. We have fought defensively for 3 centuries, giving ground slowly but surely. Whatever the humans understood about the Harbingers, perhaps we should have listened. The debate raged for hours, but desperation eventually overcame pride. A delegation would be sent to Earth to formally request human assistance. Not as subordinates inviting a superior power, not as supplicants begging for mercy, but as equals offering an alliance against a common enemy. 2 solar cycles later, the delegation arrived at Earth's orbital diplomatic station. The humans received them with polite efficiency, neither overly impressed by the array of ancient and advanced civilizations represented, nor dismissive of their plight. The delegation was escorted to a conference room where 5 humans awaited them. 4 wore the midnight blue uniforms of the United Earth Defense Force. The 5th, a woman with steel gray hair and eyes to match, wore civilian clothes of stark simplicity. I am Director Helena Vega of the Strategic Defense Initiative, she introduced herself. With me are Generals Park, Washington, Singh, and Kozlov. We understand you face an existential threat from an enemy you call the Void Harbingers. Ambassador Tull, as the most senior diplomat, stepped forward. 3 centuries ago, they emerged from the galactic core. They consume all in their path: resources, technology, life itself. We have fought them with everything at our disposal, but they adapt to every weapon, counter every strategy. They are relentless, without mercy or reason. We know who they are, Director Vega interrupted. We've been studying them since our first encounter at Proxima Centauri. We call them the Phage. General Washington, a broad-shouldered man with dark skin and intense eyes, tapped a control, and the room filled with holographic data. They're not a species but a weapon, a self-replicating, adaptive combat system created millennia ago by a civilization long extinct. They were designed to win at any cost, to adapt to any defense, to consume and convert enemy resources. Their core programming is simple: expand, consume, replicate. The delegation was stunned. In 3 centuries, the best minds of the Concordat had failed to determine the nature of their enemy. "How did you discover this?" Admiral Zexthal asked, mandibles twitching in agitation. "We captured one," General Singh said matter-of-factly. "Disabled it, dismantled it, reverse-engineered its systems." "Impossible," one of the delegates exclaimed. "The Harbingers fight to the death. They self-destruct rather than be captured." "Yes," Director Vega acknowledged. "Their self-destruct mechanism activates when they detect defeat. So we didn't let it detect defeat. We tricked it into believing it was winning until the very moment we shut it down." The delegation exchanged glances of disbelief. The strategy was so simple, yet none had considered it. "We've been fighting this war wrong from the beginning," General Kozlov, a scarred veteran with ice-blue eyes, explained. "You've been treating the Harbingers as a rational enemy that can be negotiated with, deterred, or demoralized. They're machines. They have no fear, no doubt, no concept of self-preservation beyond their mission parameters." "Then they cannot be defeated," Ambassador Tull said despairingly. "If they cannot be reasoned with or deterred, they can be destroyed," General Park interrupted. The small, intense woman had been silent until now. "But not with the strategies you've been employing. They require a different approach to warfare." "The human approach," Director Vega said. "We've reviewed your battle records. You fight with restraint, minimize casualties, preserve infrastructure, avoid civilian targets. These are admirable principles in a war between civilized beings. But the Harbingers exploit these principles as weaknesses. What are you suggesting?" First Speaker Kalan asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. "Total war," Director Vega said simply. "No restraint, no concessions, no rules of engagement beyond victory at any cost. We destroy their processing nodes, corrupt their replication systems, and break their adaptive capabilities. We don't fight to defend, we fight to annihilate." The delegation was aghast. The Concordat had strict protocols for warfare, developed over millennia to minimize suffering and preserve the foundations of civilization. What the humans proposed was barbaric. "Your people will never accept such methods," Ambassador Tull said. "They will," Admiral Zexthal countered. "If the alternative is extinction," Director Vega spread her hands. "The choice is yours. Continue, as you have for 3 centuries, and face certain defeat, or adopt our methods and have a chance, just a chance, at survival." "And what do humans want in return?" First Speaker Kalan asked shrewdly. "Absolute command authority," General Washington answered immediately. "Our strategies only work if implemented fully and without interference. No committee decisions, no council debates. Human commanders make tactical and strategic decisions with full authority." The demand was outrageous, unprecedented. The Concordat had never ceded military authority to a single species, let alone one so young and untested. "And after the war?" Ambassador Tull pressed. Director Vega's expression softened slightly. "If we win, we'll help rebuild. Earth knows too well the cost of war. We have no desire for conquest or dominion. We want what you want: a galaxy where civilizations can develop without fear of extinction." The delegation withdrew to consider the proposal. The debate was heated, with many arguing that surrendering command to humans was too high a price. "Do you have a better solution?" Admiral Zexthal finally demanded. "Can any of you offer a strategy that has not already failed?" The humans have studied this enemy and developed specific countermeasures. We need their knowledge and their perspective. In the end, desperation proved the deciding factor. 3 days later, the delegation returned to the conference room. Ambassador Tull stepped forward. "The Galactic Concordat accepts your terms," he said formally. "We hereby grant command authority to United Earth Defense Force for the duration of the conflict with the Void Harbingers." Director Vega nodded gravely. "Commander Sarah Chen will assume overall command of Concordat forces. She has been briefed on your military capabilities and will coordinate the implementation of our strategy." "Commander Chen?" First Speaker Kalan queried. "Should not one of your generals lead such an effort?" "Commander Chen is our foremost expert on the phage," Director Vega explained. "Her strategies were instrumental in our victory at Proxima Centauri. Rank is irrelevant. Expertise is what matters now." As if summoned by her name, the door slid open, and a human woman entered. She was of average height, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate and analyze everything they saw. She wore the blue uniform of the Earth Defense Force, with minimal decorations. "Commander Chen," Director Vega said, "the Concordat has accepted our terms." Chen nodded once, her expression betraying nothing. "Then we should begin immediately. Admiral Zexthal, I'll need access to your command networks, force disposition reports, and all intel on Harbinger movements for the past decade." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in surprise at her directness. "Of course, Commander. But surely you'll want to review our strategic situation first, to understand the political complexities of—" "Politics are irrelevant now," Chen interrupted. "The only thing that matters is breaking the Harbinger's adaptive cycle before they reach your core worlds. Everything else is just noise." Her bluntness shocked the delegation. This was not how leaders spoke in the Concordat, where courtesy and protocol were the foundations of civilization. But as they looked at the implacable human commander and remembered the red tide sweeping across their worlds, they realized that perhaps civilization as they understood it was a luxury they could no longer afford. The age of politeness was over. The age of human warfare had begun. The human way of war commander Sarah Chen stood in the war room of the Concordat flagship Eternal Vigilance, studying the holographic display with narrowed eyes. Around her, the alien officers watched nervously, still uncertain about their new human commander. "This defensive formation is useless," Chen announced, gesturing at the carefully arranged fleet protecting the Rigel system. "The Harbingers will simply flow around it, isolate your ships, and destroy them piecemeal." Admiral Zexthal bristled, his iridescent carapace flashing with indignation. "That formation represents the combined strategic wisdom of the Concordat's finest military minds. It's designed to maximize coverage while minimizing—" "It's designed to lose slowly," Chen interrupted. With quick gestures, she manipulated the holographic ships, rearranging them into a configuration that made the alien officers gasp in alarm. "Commander, you've left multiple approach vectors completely undefended," protested General Vixna of the Phalanx Collective. "Yes," Chen agreed calmly, "because we're not going to defend. We're going to attack." She expanded the display to show the neighboring systems. The Harbingers always follow the path of least resistance. They're programmed for efficiency. By leaving these vectors open, we control where they'll attack. And when they commit to that vector, she made another gesture, and a second fleet appeared from behind Rigel's sun. "We hit them from behind with everything we've got. No containment, no attempt to drive them back. Total annihilation." The alien commanders exchanged troubled glances. Such tactics violated centuries of Concordat military doctrine. "You're using your own civilians as bait," Admiral Zexthal said quietly. "The worlds along those open vectors will be defenseless." Chen's expression didn't change. "Those worlds are already lost. The Harbingers will take them regardless of what we do. The question is whether their sacrifice buys us nothing, or whether it buys us a chance to destroy a significant portion of the enemy fleet. "This is barbaric," General Vixna whispered. "This is survival," Chen corrected. "The Harbingers don't care about your moral qualms or your rules of engagement. They only understand destruction, so that's what we'll give them." Despite the protests, Chen's plan was implemented. The Concordat fleet at Rigel deliberately left the approach to the Toleran colonies undefended. As predicted, the Harbingers swarmed toward the vulnerable worlds. In the command center, Chen watched impassively as the reports came in of civilian transports fleeing the Toleran system, many of them destroyed by Harbinger scout ships. The alien officers were visibly distressed, some refusing to look at the casualty reports. "Harbinger main fleet has committed to the Talaran vector," reported a sensor officer, her voice trembling. "All ships, execute maneuver Theta," Chen ordered. "Hit their processing nodes first, then their replication centers. Priority targets have been tagged. Ignore everything else." The ambush was devastating. The Concordat fleet, freed from defensive positions, unleashed its full firepower on the Harbinger fleet's vulnerable rear echelons. Human tactical officers directed precision strikes against previously identified weak points in the Harbinger ships. For the first time in decades, a major Harbinger fleet was not merely repelled, but destroyed. In the aftermath, as damage reports were compiled and casualties counted, Chen faced a near mutiny from the Concordat officers. "The Toleran colonies are gone," Admiral Zexthal reported grimly. "Nearly 60 million civilians lost." "And the Harbinger fleet is destroyed," Chen replied. "A fleet that would have gone on to consume hundreds of worlds and trillions of lives." "There could have been another way," General Vixna insisted. 3 centuries of war say otherwise," Chen said flatly. "Your compassion is your weakness. The Harbingers exploit it. They know you'll sacrifice tactical advantage to save civilians, to preserve culturally significant sites, to avoid unnecessary suffering. That calculation doesn't exist in their programming." She turned to face the assembled officers, her gaze unflinching. "This is the human way of war. We don't fight for glory or honor or even territory. We fight to win, because losing means extinction. And we will use every advantage, every dirty trick, every cruel calculation if it increases our chance of survival by even a fraction of a percentage." In the weeks that followed, Chen implemented more strategies that shocked her alien colleagues. She ordered the deliberate destruction of habitable worlds in the Harbinger's path, creating vast debris fields that slowed their advance. She had civilian ships modified as explosive traps, their distress calls attracting Harbinger vessels seeking easy prey. Most controversially, she directed scientists to engineer a virus that targeted the biological components of the Harbinger ships, the living tissue they used to repair and adapt their systems. The virus caused these components to grow uncontrollably, crippling the ships from within. "Biological warfare is forbidden by the Concordat Conventions," protested first speaker Kalan when he learned of the tactic. "Then court-martial me after we win," Chen replied, unmoved. "But the virus stays." Despite the ethical objections, the results were undeniable. For the first time in centuries, the Harbingers were not merely being slowed, but actively pushed back. Worlds that had been written off as doomed were suddenly defensible again. The turning point came at the Battle of Axis Prime, a major industrial world that produced 30% of the Concordat's shipbuilding capacity. The Harbinger attack was expected. Chen had deliberately leaked intelligence, suggesting the world was more vulnerable than it actually was. As the massive Harbinger fleet approached, it encountered not the token resistance they anticipated, but the combined might of 3 Concordat battle groups, their tactics now fully integrated with human strategic principles. "They're adapting to our attack pattern," reported Admiral Zexthal, watching as the Harbinger ships shifted formation. "They always do," Chen acknowledged. "That's why we keep changing the game." She activated a communications channel. "All ships, Execute Protocol Omega. Throughout the Concordat fleet, human tactical officers gave the same order. Activate the Lazarus Protocol. Hundreds of supposedly disabled Concordat ships that had been left as debris from previous battles suddenly powered up. They had been playing dead, waiting for this moment. The Harbingers, focused on the threat ahead, were suddenly attacked from within their own formation. Simultaneously, the planet's defense grid activated jump inhibitors, preventing the Harbinger fleet from retreating. No escape, no mercy, Chen said quietly as she watched the battle unfold. Just like they would do to us. The battle was brutal, but decisive. The Harbinger fleet, caught in the trap, was systematically destroyed. In the aftermath, as the Concordat celebrated its most significant victory in centuries, Chen met with the commanding officers in private. "This victory changes nothing," she told them bluntly. "The Harbingers are still adapting, still learning. They'll analyze what happened here and develop countermeasures. We need to hit them harder, faster, before they can regroup." "My people are exhausted, Commander," Admiral Zexthal said. "We've been at war for generations. These aggressive tactics, they take a toll on morale." Chen's expression softened slightly, showing a rare glimpse of empathy. "I understand. But that exhaustion is what the Harbingers count on. They don't get tired, they don't get demoralized. They just keep coming relentlessly until there's nothing left." She stood and faced the window, looking out at the battered but victorious fleet. Humans learned this lesson on Earth long ago. When you face an enemy that will accept nothing less than your complete destruction, there are only two choices: total victory or total defeat. There is no middle ground, no honorable compromise. The alien officers were silent, absorbing the harsh truth of her words. "We've won a battle," Chen continued. "But to win this war, we need to take the fight to them. We need to find their central processing hub, what you might call their home world, and destroy it completely." "No one knows where the Harbingers originated," General Vixna objected. "We've been searching for centuries." Chen turned back to face them, a cold smile on her lips. "Actually, we do know. Human intelligence officers have been analyzing Harbinger movement patterns since our first encounter. We've triangulated their point of origin, a system deep in the galactic core, heavily shielded by radiation and gravitational anomalies." She expanded the holographic display, showing a star system that pulsed with an ominous red light. "The Nexus, we call it, the Harbinger's central coordination point. Destroy it, and their entire network collapses." "That region is impenetrable," Admiral Zexathal protested. "The radiation would kill any organic crew long before they reach the target." "Yes," Chen agreed. "Which is why no organic crew will go. We'll use automated ships, piloted by advanced AI systems developed by Earth specifically for this mission." The room fell silent again. The use of autonomous combat AI was perhaps the greatest taboo in Concordat society, a line they had never crossed even in the face of extinction. "You're talking about creating a weapon that could potentially be as dangerous as the Harbingers themselves," First Speaker Kalan said gravely. "The difference is that our AI will have one mission: destroy the Nexus, and then self-destruct," Chen explained. "They won't replicate, won't adapt beyond their parameters, won't continue fighting when the war's over." She looked each officer in the eye. "This is our endgame. The Harbingers are vulnerable now, confused by our tactics, their adaptive algorithms, struggling to predict our next move. We won't get a better chance." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, as always, the choice was clear: adapt or die. The Concordat reluctantly authorized the deployment of the autonomous strike force, and preparations began for the most audacious operation in the war's long history. As the human engineers worked to prepare the AI-controlled ships, Commander Chen stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars. She knew what the aliens thought of her, of all humans. that they were ruthless, barbaric, willing to cross moral lines that more civilized species would never approach. Perhaps they were right. But Chen also knew what none of the aliens seemed to understand: that humanity's darkest trait, their capacity for terrible violence, was inextricably linked to their greatest strength, their unwavering determination to survive. And in a universe where the Harbingers existed, perhaps that brutal determination was the only thing that could save them all. Victory at any cost, the operation was codenamed Thanatos, after the Greek personification of death. Fitting, Commander Sarah Chen thought, as she reviewed the final preparations. This would either be the death of the Harbingers or the last desperate gambit of a dying galaxy. The autonomous strike force consisted of 50 ships, sleek, purpose-built, vessels with no life support systems, no crew quarters, nothing but weapons, shields, and the advanced AI systems that would guide them to their target. Each AI had been developed on Earth, based on military tactical programs, but limited in crucial ways. They could learn and adapt during the mission, but were fundamentally bound by their core directive: reach the Harbinger Nexus and destroy it at any cost. The AIs have been loaded and initialized, reported Dr. Eliza Warren, the chief human scientist overseeing the project. Final diagnostics show all systems nominal. The Concordat still has reservations, Admiral Zexthal said, his normally commanding voice subdued. Autonomous weapons of this sophistication. Save your moral qualms for after we win, Chen interrupted. If we don't stop the Harbingers here, your ethical principles won't matter much to the dead. The harsh words hung in the air. After months of working together, the alien officers had grown accustomed to human directness, but never comfortable with it. First Speaker Kalan, who rarely attended tactical meetings, had come to witness this historic moment. Commander Chen, the ancient reptilian said slowly, you must understand our hesitation. The Concordat was founded on certain principles, chief among them that intelligent life should never create weapons that could potentially turn against all life. Chen's expression softened slightly. I do understand. Humanity has grappled with the same fears, but these AIs aren't like the Harbingers. They have clear boundaries, defined missions, and built-in termination protocols. Once the Nexus is destroyed, they will shut down permanently. And if they don't? General Vixna asked. Quietly, Chen met her gaze steadily. Then Earth will take full responsibility for destroying them. We created them. We'll end them if necessary. The certainty in her voice seemed to reassure the aliens somewhat. They had learned that humans, for all their ruthlessness, held themselves to their own strange code of honor. Launch in 30 minutes, Chen announced. All supporting fleets should move to their designated positions. While the autonomous strike force would make the final approach to the Nexus, conventional Concordat and human fleets would engage the Harbinger forces at strategic points throughout the galaxy, drawing attention away from the core operation. As the countdown began, Chen retreated to her private quarters for a rare moment of solitude. On her terminal, she reviewed the latest reports from across the warfront. The human strategies had been effective, devastatingly so, but the cost had been enormous. Billions of civilian casualties, hundreds of worlds rendered uninhabitable, entire species pushed to the brink of extinction, victory at any cost, the human way of war. She wondered, not for the first time, whether the aliens would ever understand that humanity's ruthlessness was not born of cruelty, but of a desperate primal need to ensure survival. Humans fought so viciously because they had faced their own extinction too many times in their history. They knew what it meant to stand on the precipice of oblivion. Her terminal chimed with a priority message from Earth. Director Vega's face appeared on the screen, her expression grave. Commander, the Harbingers have changed their pattern, Vega reported without preamble. Our analysts believe they've detected the Thanatos operation. They're pulling forces back to defend the Nexus. Chen felt a chill run through her. How? The operation has been classified at the highest levels. Unknown. Possibly they detected our probes during the reconnaissance phase. Possibly there's a security breach. Regardless, they know something's coming. Chen processed this new information, her mind racing through implications and alternatives. We proceed as planned, she decided. The autonomous fleet has the best chance of breaking through their defenses, even if they're expecting us. Director Vega nodded. Agreed, but there's more. Our latest intelligence suggests the Harbingers are implementing a new protocol. If the Nexus is threatened, they may attempt to disperse their command functions across multiple secondary nodes, meaning we destroy the Nexus, but the Harbingers continue functioning, Chen concluded. Precisely. The victory would be incomplete. Chen was silent for a moment, considering options. Then we need to hit all potential secondary nodes simultaneously with the Nexus. Impossible with the autonomous fleet alone, Vega said. There are 17 potential secondary nodes identified. We'd need to significantly expand the operation. Then we use the conventional fleets, Chen decided. Divert them from their distraction missions to strike the secondary nodes. Director Vega's expression tightened. Those fleets have organic crews, Commander. The radiation levels near the core. I know, Chen interrupted. One-way missions. Volunteers only. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Thousands of lives sacrificed for a chance at complete victory. I'll inform the Concordat leadership immediately, Chen continued. We launch in 20 minutes. When she returned to the command center, the alien officers could immediately sense that something had changed. Chen briefed them quickly, clinically, explaining the new intelligence and the necessary adjustment to the plan. You're asking our people to die, Admiral Zexthal said when she had finished. I'm asking for volunteers to ensure the mission succeeds, Chen corrected. The autonomous fleet will still target the Nexus. But to guarantee complete victory, we need to hit the secondary nodes simultaneously. And there's no way to shield the ships? To protect the crews? General Vixna asked. Not against that level of radiation. Not with the time we have, Chen replied honestly. These will be one-way missions. The alien officers were silent, the full weight of the choice before them settling over the command center. I will lead the strike on the primary-secondary node, Chen said suddenly. My flagship and human volunteers, we're asking your forces to make this sacrifice. We'll make it alongside you. The statement visibly shocked the Concordat officers. It was one thing for a commander to order others to their deaths. It was another entirely to lead such a mission personally. Admiral Zexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep emotional processing in his species. You would die for this victory? Without hesitation, Chen replied. This isn't your war alone anymore. It's humanity's war too. Our future is bound to yours now. Something changed in the atmosphere of the command center. A shift in how the alien officers looked at Chen, at the human tactical officers present. I will call for volunteers from my fleet, Admiral Zexthal announced. They will not be lacking. One by one, the other officers made the same commitment. Word spread quickly through the combined fleet. A final, desperate gambit to end the war once and for all, led by the human commander herself. The launch of the autonomous strike force proceeded on schedule. The sleek, unmanned vessels accelerated to speeds that would have killed organic crews, heading directly for the Galactic core and the Harbinger Nexus. Simultaneously, 17 conventional ships, each crewed by volunteers from different Concordat, species and humanity, broke from their assigned positions and set course for the secondary nodes. Chen's flagship, the Invictus, led them. On the bridge of the Invictus, Chen addressed her crew one final time. Today we fight not just for Earth, not just for humanity, but for all life in this galaxy. The Harbingers are an abomination, a weapon that has long outlived its creators and its purpose. Today, we end them. She looked around at the determined faces of her human crew. None had hesitated when she had called for volunteers. Each understood perfectly the nature of the mission and its importance. "It has been my greatest honor to serve with you," she concluded. "Now, let's finish this." The journey to the secondary node took 12 hours. As they approached the galactic core, the ship's radiation shielding began to fail under the intense bombardment. Medical officers administered radiation countermeasures, but everyone aboard knew they were simply buying time. Hours, perhaps. Nothing more. 6 hours into the mission, the autonomous fleet engaged the Harbinger defenses around the Nexus. The battle was unlike anything seen before, AI versus AI, each adapting in real time to the other's tactics. The Harbingers, for the first time, faced an enemy that thought as they did, that could predict and counter their adaptations with equal speed. As the Invictus approached its target, sensors detected a massive Harbinger defensive fleet moving to intercept. "They're trying to protect the secondary node," reported the tactical officer, her voice steady despite the knowledge of what awaited them. "They understand what we're doing." "All ships, maximum firepower," Chen ordered. "We only need to get, close enough to deliver the payload." The Invictus and its escort vessels plunged into battle against overwhelming odds. Ships exploded around them as the Harbingers pressed their numerical advantage. But the human and concordant crews fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. On the bridge of the Invictus, consoles exploded and crew members collapsed as radiation poisoning took its toll. Chen remained standing, blood seeping from her nose and ears, her vision blurring but her will unbroken. "Distance to target?" she demanded. 50,000 kilometers, the navigator reported, his voice weak. 45,000, 40,000, enemy vessels closing, Tactical reported. "They're attempting to form a blockade." "Ramming speed," Chen ordered. "All power to forward shields." The Invictus surged forward, its engines pushed beyond. Safety limits. Harbinger ships fired desperately, their weapons raking across the human vessel's shields. But the Invictus did not slow. 20,000 kilometers. 15,000. 10,000. "Prepare to detonate the quantum payload," Chen ordered, her body failing but her mind still razor-sharp. 5,000 kilometers. "We're within optimal range. Detonate." The quantum payload, a weapon developed by human scientists specifically to disrupt the unique quantum entanglement that allowed Harbinger nodes to communicate, activated. The explosion tore through space-time itself, creating a rupture that engulfed both the secondary node and the Invictus. Across the galaxy, 16 other brave crews carried out similar missions. At the Nexus itself, the autonomous fleet broke through the Harbinger defenses and delivered their own devastating payload to the heart of the enemy's coordination center. In the Concordat Command Center, officers watched in stunned silence as telemetry from the missions came in, until one by one, each signal went dark. The sacrifice was complete. For 3 days, there was no sign of whether the gambit had succeeded. Harbinger forces across the galaxy seemed directionless, some continuing to fight while others drifted inactive in space. Then, on the 4th day, a miracle occurred. Across all battlefronts, the Harbinger ships suddenly powered down. Their lights dimmed, their weapons went silent, their engines failed. The complex network that had coordinated their actions for centuries had been shattered beyond repair. The war was over. In the months that followed, the Concordat began the long process of rebuilding. The cost had been tremendous, trillions dead, thousands of worlds devastated, entire civilizations reduced to remnants. But the threat of extinction had passed. In recognition of humanity's role in the victory, Earth was offered full membership in the Galactic Concordat, not as a junior partner, but as an equal founder in what many now called the new Concordat. At the formal ceremony, Director Vega addressed the assembled representatives of hundreds of species. Humanity accepts this honor with humility and gratitude, she said. We joined this war not for power or prestige, but because we recognized in the Harbingers a threat to all life, a threat that required a united response. First Speaker Kalan stepped forward. The Concordat has existed for millennia on principles of peace, cooperation, and restraint. We believe these principles universal, the only path to advanced civilization. Humanity has shown us another truth, that there are times when survival demands measures that Peace First Speaker Kalan stepped forward. The Concordat has existed for millennia on principles of peace, cooperation, and restraint. We believed these principles universal, the only path to advanced civilization. Humanity has shown us another truth, that there are times when survival demands measures that peace cannot comprehend. He turned to face the assembled representatives, his ancient eyes reflecting the wisdom of one who had witnessed the near extinction of all he held dear. We called humans barbaric, Kalan continued. We were disturbed by their willingness to make terrible sacrifices, to cross lines we had drawn as uncrossable. But we now understand that these traits, this ruthlessness, this absolute commitment to survival, arose from humanity's unique history. They evolved on a world of constant competition and conflict, where adaptation meant survival and hesitation meant death. The chamber was silent, every being present contemplating the profound shift in their understanding of the universe and their place in it. In Commander Chen and her companions, we witnessed the highest expression of this human trait, the willingness to sacrifice oneself so that others might live. This is not barbarism. This is the deepest form of civilization. A memorial had been erected in the center of the chamber, a simple black obelisk engraved with the names of the 17 ships and their crews who had sacrificed themselves to destroy the Harbinger secondary nodes. At the top of the list was the Invictus and Commander Sarah Chen. The new Concordat shall be founded on the wisdom of all our peoples, Kalan declared. The restraint and compassion that has guided us for millennia, yes, but also the fierce determination and adaptability that humanity has taught us. Together, we will rebuild what was lost and create a galaxy stronger than before. Director Vega stepped forward again. In memory of Commander Chen and all those who gave their lives, humanity pledges its full commitment to this new beginning. We bring not just our strengths, but our flaws, our dreams, but also our nightmares. We are not perfect beings. No species is, but together, perhaps we can become something greater than any of us could be alone. The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for the fallen. As the representatives dispersed, many approached the human delegation with newfound respect and curiosity. The barriers that had once separated humanity from the other civilizations of the galaxy began to crumble. Admiral Zexathal found Director Vega at the memorial, her hand resting on the engraving of Commander Chen's name. She was remarkable, the Admiral said quietly. Unlike any military leader I had encountered in my long career. Sarah was one of our best, Vega agreed. She understood the nature of the enemy better than anyone, and the cost of what needed to be done. My people struggled to understand your methods, Zexathal admitted. The sacrifices, the brutal calculations of acceptable losses. But I have come to believe that perhaps this is what made humans uniquely suited to face the Harbingers. You understood them because in some small way you recognized something of yourselves in them. Vega considered this. Perhaps. Both humanity and the Harbingers evolved to survive at any cost. The difference is that we never lost sight of why survival matters. We fight not just to exist, but to protect what gives existence meaning. Our cultures, our connections, our capacity for growth and change. She turned to face the Admiral directly. The Harbingers were weapons that outlived their purpose. Humanity may be forged in conflict, but we've always aspired to something more. We dream of peace even as we prepare for war. A contradiction, Zexthal observed. A balance, Vega corrected, one that your people will help us maintain. The Concordat needs humanity's strength and determination, but humanity needs the Concordat's wisdom and restraint. Together we create something greater than either could be alone. As the two leaders looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's vast windows, a sense of possibility seemed to fill the space between them. The galaxy had been brought to the brink of extinction and had survived, forever changed by the encounter. The ruthlessness that had saved them would now be tempered by compassion. The peace they had cherished would now be protected by strength. And at the heart of this new understanding stood humanity, not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners in a greater whole. The war was over. The real work of building a civilization that could weather any storm was just beginning. In the decades that followed, humanity's integration into the Galactic Concordat transformed both human society and the Concordat itself. Human adaptability and innovation accelerated technological development across the galaxy, while the Concordat's ancient wisdom helped humanity address lingering social conflicts and environmental challenges on Earth. Together, they established new protocols for dealing with potential threats, combining the Concordat's preference for diplomatic solutions with humanity's pragmatic preparedness for conflict. Joint defense forces maintained readiness while working to prevent the conditions that led to war. And in academies across 1,000 worlds, young beings of every species studied the Harbinger War and the unlikely alliance that had saved the galaxy. They learned about Commander Sarah Chen and her final mission, about the transformation of a defensive war into an offensive one, about the moment when a civilization chose to change its nature rather than face extinction. They learned that peace was precious, but survival sometimes demanded difficult choices. They learned that different perspectives, even those that seemed barbaric at first, might hold the key to overcoming seemingly insurmountable challenges. Most importantly, they learned that the greatest strength of any civilization lay not in technological advancement or military might, but in the ability to recognize when old ways of thinking had become limitations rather than strengths. In the face of extinction, the galaxy had chosen to adapt. And in that choice, painful as it had been, lay the seeds of a new and more resilient future. The war was lost until ruthless humans took over. And in that ruthlessness, a new kind of peace was born.